Hello, Kymani, here to read from some Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Yep. Chapter 11, Hermione's Helping Hand. As Hermione had predicted, the 6 years free periods were not the hours of blissful relaxation Ron had anticipated, but times in which to attempt to keep up with the vast amount of homework they were being set. Not only were they studying as though they had exams every day, but the lessons themselves had become more demanding than ever before. Harry barely understood half of what Miss Professor McGonagall said to them these days. Even Hermione had to ask her to repeat instructions once or twice. Incredibly, under Hermione's increasing resentment, Harry's best subject had suddenly become potions thanks to the Half-Blood Prince. Non-verbal spells were now expected, not only in defense against the dark arts, but in charms and transfiguration too. Harry frequently looked over at his classmates in the common room or at mealtimes to see them purple in the face and straining as though they had overdosed on you-know-poo. But he knew that they were really struggling to make spells work without saying incantations aloud. It was a relief to get outside into the greenhouses. They were dealing with more dangerous plants than ever in herbology, but at least they were still allowed to swear loudly if the venomous tentacula seized them unexpectedly from behind. One result of their enormous workload and the frantic hours of practicing non-verbal spells was that Harry, Ron, and Hermione had so far been unable to find time to go and visit Hagrid. He had stopped coming to meals at the staff table, an ominous sign, and on the few occasions when they had passed him in the corridors or out in the grounds, he had seriously failed to notice them or hear their greetings. "We got to go explain," said Hermione, looking up at Hagrid's huge empty chair at the staff table the following Saturday at breakfast. We got Quidditch trials this morning," said Ron, "and we're supposed to be practicing that Aguamenti charm from Flitwick. Anyway, explain what? How are we going to tell him that we hated his stupid subject?" "We didn't hate it," said Hermione. "Speak for yourself." "I haven't forgotten the Scroots," said Ron darkly. And I'm telling you now, we've had a narrow escape. You didn't hear him going on about his homeless brother, and we could have been teaching Grop how to tie his shoelaces if we'd stayed. "I hate not talking to Hagrid," said Hermione, looking upset. "You'll go down after Quidditch," Harry assured her. He too was missing Hagrid, although like Ron, he thought they were better off without Grop in their lives. The trials might take all morning. A number of people who have applied. He felt slightly nervous at confronting the first hurdle of his captaincy. "I don't know why the team is just popular all of a sudden." "Oh, come off it, Harry," said Hermione, suddenly impatient. "It's not Quidditch that's popular, it's you. You've never been more interesting, and frankly, you've never been more fanciable." Ron gagged on the large piece of kipper. Hermione spared him one look of disdain before turning back to Harry. "Everyone knows you've been telling the truth now, don't they? The whole wizarding world has had to admit that you were right about Voldemort being back, and that you really have fought him twice in the last 2 years and escaped both times. And now they're calling you the Chosen One. Well, come on, can't you see why people are fascinated by you?" Harry was finding the great hall very hot all of a sudden. even though the ceiling still looked cold and rainy. And you've been through all that persecution from the nursing when they were trying to make you out that you were unstable and a liar. You can still see the marks on your back, the back of your hand where that evil woman made you write with your own blood, but you stuck to your story anyway. You can still see where those brains got hold of me in the ministry. Look, said Ron, shaking back his sleeves. And it didn't hurt that he was grown about a foot over the summer either. Kymani finished ignoring Ron. I'm told, said Ron inconsequently. Burst out of the rave, swooping down through rain-flecked windows, scattering everyone with droplets of water. Most people were receiving more posts than usual. Anxious parents were keen to hear from their children and to reassure them in turn that all was well at home. He had received no mail since the start of term. His only regular correspondent was now dead, and although he had hoped that Lupin might write occasionally, he had so far been disappointed. He was very surprised, therefore, to see the snowy white pegwig circling amongst all the brown and grey owls. She landed in front of him, carrying a large, square package. A moment later, an identical package landed in front of Ron, crushing beneath it his minuscule and exhausted owl, Pigwidgeon. Ha! Said Harry, unwrapping the parcel to reveal a new copy of Advanced Potion Making, fresh from fluorescent blocks. Oh, good, said Hermione, died. Now you can give that graffiti copy back. Are you mad? Said Harry. I'm keeping it. Look, I've thought it out. Pulled the old copy of Advanced Potion Making out of his bag and taped the cover with his wand, muttering, Defendo! The cover fell off. He did the same thing with the brand new book. Hermione looked scandalized. He then swapped the covers, taped each, and said, Reparo! There sat the prince's copy, disguised as a new book. And there sat a fresh copy from Ferrison Pot, looking thoroughly second-hand. I'll give Slughorn back the new one. He can't complain, it cost 9 galleons. Hermione pressed her lips together, looking angry and disapproving, but was distracted by a third owl landing in front of her, carrying the day's copy of the Daily Prophet. She unfolded it hastily and scanned the front page. Anyone we know did? Asked Ron in a determinedly casual voice. He posed the same question every time Hermione opened her paper. No, Pop. There have been more dementor attacks, said Hermione, and an arrest. Excellent. Who? Said Harry, thinking of Bellatrix's thing. Stan Shunpike, said Hermione. What? Said Harry, startled. Stanley Shunpike, conductor on the popular wizarding conveyance The Night Bus, has been arrested on suspicion of Death Eater activity. Mr. Shunpike, 21, was taken into custody late last night after a raid on his Clapham home. Stan Shunpike, a Death Eater? Said Harry, remembering the spotty youth he had met 3 years before. No way! He might have been put under the Imperious curse, said Ron reasonably. You never can tell. Doesn't look like it, said Hermione, who was still reading. Says here he was arrested after he was overheard talking about the Death Eater's secret plans in a pub. She looked up and with a troubled expression on her face. If he was under the Imperious curse, he'd hardly stand around gossiping about their plans, would he? Sounds like he was trying to make out who he knew more than he did, said Ron. Isn't he the one who claimed he was going to become Minister of Magic when he was trying to chat up those Vila? Yeah, that's him, said Harry. I don't know what they're playing at, taking Stan seriously. They probably want to look as though they're doing something, said Hermione, frowning. People are terrified. You know, the Patil twins' parents want them to go home, and Emily's smidgen has already been withdrawn. Her father picked her up last night. What? Said Ron, gobbling at him on. Hogwarts is safer than their homes, bound to be. We've got auras, and all those extra protective spells, and we've got Dumbledore. I don't think we've got them all the time, said Hermione very quietly, glancing toward the staff table over the top of the prophet. Haven't you noticed his seat's been empty as often as Hagrid's this past week? Harry and Ron looked up at the staff table. The headmaster's chair was indeed empty. Now Harry came to think of it, he had not seen Dumbledore since their private lesson a week ago. Well, I think he's left the school to do something with the order, said Hermione in a low voice. I mean, it's all looking serious, isn't it? Harry and Ron did not answer, but Harry knew that they were all thinking the same thing. There had been a horrible incident the day before when Hannah Abbott had been taken out of her balcony to be told her mother had been found dead. We've not seen Hannah since. When they left the Gryffindor table 5 minutes later, to head down to the Quidditch pitch, he passed Lavender Brown and Pavati Patil. Remembering what Hermione had said about the Patil twins' parents wanting them to leave Hogwarts. Harry was unsurprised to see that the two best friends were whispering together, looking distressed. What did surprise him was that when Ron drew level with them, Parvati slightly nudged Lavender, who looked around and gave Ron a wide smile. Ron blinked at her and then returned the smile uncertainly. His walk instantly became something more like a strut. Harry resisted the temptation to laugh, remembering that Ron had refrained from doing so after Malfoy had broken into Harry's nose. Hermione, however, looked cold and distant all the way down to the stadium through the cool, misty drizzle, and departed to find a place in the stands without wishing Ron good luck. As Harry had expected, the trials took most of the morning. Half of Gryffindor House seemed to have turned up. From first years who were nervously clutching a selection of the dreadful old school brooms to 7th years who towered over the rest, looking coolly intimidating. The latter included a large, wiry-haired boy Harry recognized immediately from the Hogwarts Express. "Come in on the train, in old Sluggy's compartment," he said confidently, stepping out of the crowd to shake Harry's hand. Cormac McLaggen, keeper. You didn't try out last year, did you? Asked Harry, taking note of the breadth of McLaggen and thinking that he would probably block all 3 goal hoops without even moving. "I was in the hospital wing when they held the trials," said McLaggen with something of a swagger. "And a pound of doxy eggs for a bet." "Right," said Harry. "Well, if you wait over there," he pointed over to the edge of the pitch, close to where Hermione was sitting. He thought he saw a flicker of annoyance pass over McLaggen's face, and wondered whether McLaggen expected preferential treatment because they were both old Sluggy's favorites. Harry decided to start with the basic test, asking all applicants for their teams to divide into groups of 10 and fly once around the pitch. This was a good decision. The first 10 was made up of first years, and it could not have been plainer than that they had hardly ever flown before. The one boy managed to remain airborne for more than a few seconds, and he was so surprised he promptly crashed into one of the goalposts. The second group was comprised of 10 of the silliest girls Harry had ever encountered, who, when he blew his whistle, really fell about giggling and clutching one another. Romilda Vane was amongst them. When he told them to leave the pit, they did so cheerfully and went down in the stands to heckle everyone else. Their group had a pile up halfway around the pitch. Most of the fourth group had come without broomsticks. The fifth group were Hufflepuffs. If there's anyone else that is all from Gryffindor, roared Harry, who was starting to get seriously annoyed. Leave now, please. There was a pause, then a couple of the little Ravenclaws went sprinting off the pitch, starting with laughter. After 2 hours, many complaints and several tantrums, one involving a crashed Comet 260 and several broken teeth, Harry had found himself 3 chasers. Katie Bell returned to the team after an excellent trial. A new fine mate called Demelza Robbins, who was particularly good at dodging bludgers, and Ginny Weasley, who had outflown all the competition and scored 17 goals to boot. Pleased though he was with his choices, Harry had also shown himself hoarse as the many complainers and was now enduring a similar battle with the rejected beaters. That's my final decision, and if you don't get out of the way for the keepers, I'll hex you, he bellowed. Neither of his chosen beaters had the old brilliance of Fred and George, but he was still reasonably pleased with them. Jimmy Peaks, a short but broad-chested third-year boy, who had managed to raise a lump the size of an egg on the back of Harry's head with a ferociously hit bludger, and Richie Coote, who looked weedy but aimed well. They now joined the spectators in the stands to watch the selection of their last team member. Harry had deliberately left the trial of the keepers to last, hoping for an emptier stadium and less pressure on all concerned. Unfortunately, however, all the rejected players and a number of people who had come down to watch after a lengthy breakfast had joined the crowd by now, so that it was larger than ever. As each keeper flew up to the goal hoops, the crowd roared and jeered in equal measure. Harry glanced over at Ron, who had always had a problem with nerves. Harry had hoped that winning their final match last term might have cured it, but apparently not. Ron was a delicate shade of green. None of the first 5 applicants saved more than 2 goals apiece. Harry's great disappointment, Cormac McLaggen saved 4 penalties out of 5. On the last one, however, he shot off in completely the wrong direction. The crowd laughed and booed, and McLaggen returned to the ground grinding his teeth. Ron looked ready to pass out as he mounted his clean sweep 11. Good luck! Cried a voice from the stands. Harry looked around expecting to see Hermione, but it was Lavender Brown. He would have quite liked to have hidden his face in his hands, as he did a moment later, but thought that as the captain he ought to show slightly more grit, and so turned to watch Ron do his trial. Yet he need not have worried. Ron saved 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 penalties in a row. Delighted and resisting joining in the cheers of the crowd with difficulty, Harry turned to McLaggen to tell him that, most unfortunately, Ron had beaten him, only to find McLaggen's red face inches from his own. He stepped back hastily. His sister didn't really try, said McLaggen menacingly. There was a vein pulsing in his temple like the one Harry had often admired in Uncle Vernon's. She gave him an easy save. Rubbish, said Harry coldly. That was the one he nearly missed. McLaggen took a step nearer Harry, who stood his ground this time. Give me another go. No, said Harry. You've had your go. You saved 4, Ron saved 5. Ron's keeper. He won it fair and square. Get out of my way. He thought for a moment that McLaggen might punch him, but he contented himself with an ugly grimace and stormed away, throwing something like threats to thin air. Harry turned around to find his new team beaming at him. Well done, he croaked. You feel really well. You did brilliantly, Ron. This time it really was Hermione running toward them from the stands. Harry saw Lavender walking off the pitch, arm in arm with Parvati, a rather grumpy expression on their face. Ron looked extremely pleased with himself and even taller than usual as he grinned at the team and at Hermione. After fixing the time of their first full practice for the following Thursday, Harry, Ron, and Hermione bade goodbye to the rest of the team and headed off to towards Hagrid's. The watery sun was trying to break through the clouds now, and it stopped drizzling at last. Harry felt extremely hungry. He hoped there would be something to eat at Hagrid's. I thought I was going to miss that fourth penalty, Ron was saying happily. Tricky shot from Demezla. Did you see? Had a bit of spin on it. Yes, you were magnificent, said Hermione, looking amused. I was better than McLaggen anyway, said Ron in a highly satisfied voice. You see him lumbering off in the strong direction of his fifth? Looked like he'd been confounded. Very surprised, Hermione turned a very deep shade of pink at these words. Ron noticed nothing. He was too busy describing each of his own penalties in loving detail. The great grey hippogriff, Buckbeak, was stood in front of Hagrid's cabin. He looked his razor-sharp back at their approach and turned his huge head toward them. Oh dear, said Hermione nervously. He's still a bit scary, isn't he? Come on, Fred, you've ridden him, haven't you? Said Ron. Harry stepped forward and bowed low to the hippogriff without breaking eye contact or blinking. After a few seconds, Buckbeak sank into a bow too. How are you? Harry asked him in a low voice, moving forward to stroke the feathery head. Missing him? But you're okay here with Hagrid, aren't you? Aye, said a loud voice. Hagrid had come striding around the corner of his cabin wearing a large flowery apron and carrying a sack of potatoes. His Norse boarhound Fang was at his heels. Fang gave a booming bark and bounded forward. Get away from him! He'll have your fingers. Oh, it's your lot. Fang was jumping up at Hermione and Ron, attempting to lick their ears. Hagrid stood and looked at them all for a split second, then turned and strode into his cabin, slamming the door behind him. Oh dear, said Hermione, looking stricken. Don't worry about it, said Harry grimly. He walked over the door and knocked loudly. Hagrid, open up, we want to talk to you. There was no sound from within. If you don't open the door, we'll blast it open, Harry said, pulling out his wand. Harry, said Hermione, looking sunshine. Yeah, possibly, yes I can, said Harry. Stand back. Before he could say anything else, the doors flew open again, as Harry had known it would, and there stood Hagrid, glowering down at him and looking despite the flowery apron, positively alarming. I'm a teacher, he roared at Harry. A teacher, Paul? How dare you threaten to break down my door? I'm sorry, sir, said Harry, emphasizing the last word as he stowed his wand inside his robes. Hagrid looked stunned. Since when have you called me sir? Since when have you called me Potter? Oh, very clever, growled Hagrid. Very amusing. That's me outsmarted in it. All right. Come in then, you ungrateful little. Mumbling darkly, he stood back to let them pass. Hermione scurried in after Harry, looking rather frightened. Well, said Hagrid grumpily, as Harry, Ron, and Hermione sat down around his enormous wooden table, Fang laying his head immediately upon Harry's knee and drooling all over his robes. What's this, feeling sorry for me? Reckon I'm lonely or something? No, said Harry at once. We wanted to see you. We missed you, said Hermione tremulously. Missed me, eh? Have you? Said Ragged. Yeah, right. He stomped around, brewing up tea in his enormous copper kettle, measuring all the while. Finally, he slammed down 3 bucket-sized mugs of mahogany brown tea in front of them, and a plate of his rock cakes. Harry was hungry enough even for Hagrid's cookie and took that one at once. Hagrid, said Hermione timidly, when he joined them at the table and started peeling his potatoes with a brutality that says that each tuber had done him great personal wrong. He really wanted to carry on with the care of magical creatures, you know. Hagrid gave another snort. Harry rather thought some bogies landed on the potatoes, but was inwardly thankful that they were not staying for dinner. We did, said Hermione, but none of us could fit into our schedules. Yeah, right, said Hagrid again. There was a funny squelching sound, and they all looked around. Hermione let out a tiny shriek, and Ron leapt out of his seat and hurried around the table, away from the large barrel standing in the corner that they had only just noticed. It was full of what looked like foot-long maggots, slimy, white, and writhing. What are they, Hagrid? Asked Harry, trying to sound interested rather than revolted, but putting down his rock cake all the same. Just giant grubs, said Hagrid. And they grow into, said Ron, looking apprehensively. They won't grow into nothing, said Hagrid. I gotta feed them to Aragog. And without warning, he burst into tears. Hagrid, said Hermione, leaping up and hurrying around the table the long way to avoid the barrel of maggots and putting an arm around his shaky shoulders. What is it? It's him. Oh, Hagrid, his beetle black eyes steaming as he mopped his face with his apron. It's Aragog. I think he's dying. He got ill over the summer, and he's not getting better. I don't know what I'll do if we've been together for so long. Hermione patted Hagrid's shoulder, looking at it at a complete loss for anything to say. Harry knew how she felt. He had known Hagrid to present a vicious baby dragon with a teddy bear, seen him croon over giant scorpions with suckers and stingers, attempt to reason with his brutal giant of a half-brother. This was perhaps the most incomprehensible of all his monster fantasies. The giant talking spider, Aragog, who dwelt deep in the forbidden forest, and which he and Ron had only narrowly escaped 4 years previously. Is there anything we can do? Hermione asked, ignoring Ron's frantic grimaces and head shakings. I don't think there is, Hermione, choked Hagrid, attempting to stem the flood of his tears. See, the rest of the tribe. It took him 2 attempts to get through the doors. He ricocheted off the frame on the first attempt. Ron merely guffawed grudgingly and strode off into the great hall after him, but Harry caught Hermione's arm and held him and hurt back. What? Said Hermione decisively. If you ask me, said Harry quietly, the dragon looks like he was confounded yet this morning. And he was standing right in front of where you were sitting. Hermione blushed. It's all right, then I did it, she whispered. But you should have heard the way he was talking about Ron and Ginny. Anyway, he's got a nasty temper. You saw how he reacted when he didn't get in. He wouldn't have wanted someone like that on the team. No, said Harry. I suppose that's true. But wasn't that dishonest, Hermione? I mean, you're a prefect, aren't you? You be quiet, she snapped as he smirked. What are you two doing? Demanded Ron, reappearing, looking in the doorway to the great aunt looking suspicious. Nothing, said Harry and Hermione together, and they hurried after Ron. The smell of roast beef made Harry's stomach ache with hunger, but they had barely taken 3 steps towards the Gryffindor table when Professor Slughorn appeared in front of them, blocking their path. Harry, just the man I was hoping to see, he boomed genially, pulling the ends of his rawish mustache and putting on out of his enormous belly. I was hoping to catch you before dinner, but he stayed to a spot of supper tonight in my rooms instead. Having a little party, just a few rising stars. I've got McLagan coming and Zabini, charming in the bobbin. I don't know whether you know her. Her family owns a large chain of apothecaries, and of course, how very much a Miss Granger will favor he coming too. Slughorn made Hermione a little bow as he finished speaking. It was as though Ron was not pleasant. Slughorn did not much look at him. I can't come, Professor, said Harry at once. Got detention with Professor Snape. Oh dear, said Slughorn, his face falling comically. Dear, I was calling on you, Harry. Well, now that I'll just have to have a word with Severus and explain the situation. I'm sure I'll be able to persuade him to postpone your detention. Yes, I'll see you all both later. He bustled away out of the hall. This is not no chance of persuading Snape, said Harry the moment Slughorn was out of earshot. This detention's already been postponed once. Snape did it for Dumbledore, but he won't do it for anyone else. Oh, I wish you could come. I don't want to go on my own, said Hermione anxiously. Harry knew that she was thinking of McLagan. I doubt you'll be alone, Ginny. Ginny will probably be invited, snapped Ron, who did not seem to have taken kindly to being ignored by Slughorn. After dinner, they made their way back to Gryffindor Tower. The common room was very crowded, as most people had finished dinner by now, but they managed to find a free table and sat down. Ron, who had been in a bad mood ever since the encounter with Slughorn, folded his arms and frowned at the ceiling. Kymani reached out for a copy of the Evening Prophet, which somebody had left abandoned on the chair. Anything new? Said Harry. Oh, really? Kymani had opened the newspaper and was scanning the inside pages. Oh, look, it's out there, Ron, and he's all right, she added quickly, for Ron had looked around in alarm. Just as he's been to visit the Malfoy's house. Second search of the Death Eater's residence does not seem to have yielded any results. Arthur Beasley of the Office for Detection of Confiscation of Counterfeit Defective Spells and Protective Objects said that his team had been acting upon a confidential tip-off. Yeah, mine, said Harry. I told him at King's Cross about Malfoy and that thing he was trying to get Morgan to fix. Well, if it's on at their house, he must have brought whatever it is to Hogwarts with him. But how could he have done it, Harry? Said Hermione, putting down the newspaper with a surprised look. We were all searched when we arrived, weren't we? Were you? Said Harry, taken aback. I wasn't. Oh no, of course you weren't. I forgot you were late. The search ran over all of us with secrecy sensors. When we got into the entrance hall, any dark objects would have been found. No, for a fat crab had a shrunken head confiscated. See, Malfoy can't have brought anything anything dangerous. Momentarily stymied, Harry watched Ginny Weasley playing with Arnold the Pygmy Puff for a while, before seeing her way around this objection. Someone must have sent it to him by owl then, he said. His mother or someone. All the owls have been checked too, said Hermione. Phil told us so. He was jamming those secrecy sensors everywhere he could reach. He stumped this time. Harry found nothing else to say. There did not seem to be any way Malfoy could have brought dangerous or dark objects into the school. He looked hopefully at Ron, who was sitting with his arm folded, staring over at Lavender Brown. Can you think of any way, Malfoy? Oh, drop it, Harry, said Ron. Listen, it's not your fault Slughorn invited Kymani and me to a stupid party. Neither of us wanted to go, you know, said Harry, firing up. Well, as I'm not invited to any parties, said Ron, getting to his feet again, I think I'll go to bed. He stomped off toward the door to the boys' dormitories, leaving Harry and Ron staring after him. Harry, said the new chaser, the males of Robin, springing something at his shoulders. I've got a message from you. From Professor Slughorn? Asked Harry, sitting hopefully. No, from Professor Snape, said the Melzer. Harry's heart sank. He says you to come to his office at 8:30 tonight to do your detention. No matter how many party invitations you received. And he wants you to know you'll be sorting out rotten followers from good ones, used in potions, and he says there's only to bring protective gloves. Right, said Harry grimly. Thanks a lot, Benelza. And with that, we end this chapter. Chapter